There are some other lines in the movie that really bother people. At one point, Charlize Theron's character says that they have traveled 500,000,000 miles. And by now, if you watch the Colbert Report, you know that Neil deGrasse Tyson tweeted about this. I was amused by his tweet, and I may have even retweeted it at the time. He said that basically that would get you just past Jupiter. It wouldn't get you anywhere near close to a star, let alone LV-223. That one didn't bother me so much because, after all, the Theron character is not a scientist. She's a corporate representative, essentially, and she may not know very much at all about where the ship is going. Initially, I had a little problem with the pods. They float around and they explore this new environment. Here's one of them right here.
Whatever that probe is picking up, it's reading life form.
Neat! And it really is. It's cool to look at. It's an awesome effect, and everybody has a good time with it. But I found myself wondering how the little probes float. How does that work? One character calls them the pups. What makes the pups work? Is it some sort of magnetic levitation field? And if it is, how did the people who put the pups on the Prometheus know there was going to be an EM field for them to react to? There's problems. But then it occurred to me that, hey, the Prometheus seems to have some sort of artificial gravity. Apparently they've figured that out only a few centuries in our future. Is it centrifugal force? I mean, if you take a bucket of water and you spin it around your head, the water is compelled to go in the direction of outwards. The bucket is in the way, so the water stays in the bucket. That's centrifugal force, and it's used in movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey. You flip part of the ship around, and so inside it feels like you have some sort of gravity. Well, we don't see anything on the Prometheus that looks like it's doing that. So apparently they have artificial gravity, and if they can have it on the ship, why can't they make the pups use it too? Okay, fine. Fine. I'm willing to let that go. My wife said, hey, it never bothers you in Star Wars. Well, that's not real science fiction, but okay, we'll let it go. A line that bothered me more was a character says, oh, you're going to throw out 300 years of Darwinism if it turns out these ancestor aliens are out there. The character should know full well that, in fact, that would have no effect on Darwinism. Evolution would still have taken place in the unspecified time period since life was planted here. Species would still evolve. There would still be natural selection. So Darwinism hasn't gone anywhere. The theme of creationism is relevant here. One of the characters, played by Noomi Rapace, wears a cross around her neck. She is a Christian and a scientist, and also seems to believe in the panspermia theory, which states that evolution began when life was introduced to Earth from or by an outside source. The theory is a little vague. Some people believe that DNA arrived here on a meteorite, or maybe maybe that meteorite was a piece of Mars or something. That's one theory. Another is that aliens put life here, or if you're a Catholic, you might very well believe that evolution began when God gave it a kickstart. That's a kind of panspermia theory. 2, life didn't happen here. It came from somewhere else. Well, that's a big thematic idea. It's big, and I think it's exciting that as a culture we're ready to kind of think about some of these cosmological ideas. The problem with panspermia is that it really just delays the argument. It's the same argument many of us have with religion. You say, well, okay, we evolved or we didn't, whatever, but God got it started. And then somebody who is outside your belief system, like myself, can say, well, then who started God? And you really haven't solved the problem at all. The same thing is true of panspermia. Okay, aliens put life here. Who put the aliens there? Okay, life arrived here on a meteorite. How did it get on the meteorite? Who put it on the planet originally? You're still looking for a first cause. It's kind of the scientific version of that line in Superman. You got me? Who's got you? It just delays the argument. And eventually, things have to get a little magical. Okay, but hey, that's a big thematic idea, and one of the things I like about Prometheus is that it's really swinging for the cheap seats. It's really trying to take on some big questions. In fact, one of the major themes of the movie is introduced in the trailers. In fact, it's the first line in the trailer. Sounds a little bit like this.
A king has his reign. And then he dies. It's inevitable.
The king has his reign and he dies. It's inevitable. There is a blogger who calls himself Cavalorn. His URL is right there. By the way, it's because you're looking at yourself backwards in this thing, it's really hard to remember that you have to do that. Anyway, sorry. You'll see me make that mistake time and time again, I'm sure. It's like the weatherman who looks at the wrong place on the green screen. Anyway, Cavalorn, whose URL you just saw, he believes this is the main theme of the movie, that it is a virtue in the Prometheus universe to begin some sort of creative act in the universe, whether it's to have children or to seed life on another planet or whatever, and then go away. Just get out of its way. And in fact, the movie seems to be implying that we should get out of the way of androids, like David, the character played by Michael Fassbender. And by the way, I had a lot of problems with his motivations too. Some real plot holes there. It's another problem with the movie, although that character is very, very interesting. Okay, so do something creative and get out of the way. Ridley? Anyway, so that's an interesting idea, an interesting take on the movie, and there may be something there. In order for that theory to be correct, however, you have to assume that when one character in the movie says that there is a weapons cache in the movie, specifically this room right here, he is mistaken. It isn't a weapons cache at all. It happens to be a sort of sacred room of mutation or mutagens or something. I don't know. It's all a little fuzzy. And there are a lot of unanswered questions in the movie. In fact, it seems to beg more questions it doesn't answer than to raise questions it actually does.